This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Yi Fan's eyes had opened, he was staring at him expressionlessly. His eyes were as deep as the ocean, devoid of any human emotions. It was as if he was born naturally and eternity would be there. In his eyes, there was actually a silver river that was decorated with stars. Feng Yi felt a huge chill in his heart. Although he couldn't sense the slightest power from the other party, just those eyes made him tremble all over, and he couldn't help but feel like kneeling down and worshipping. How could it be like this? I'm a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens, and my sovereign chi can suppress all forces. Why is there such a terrifying tremor? Feng Yi's heart grew colder, and his body trembled extremely badly. His 5 fingers had long been taken out of the golden light and stopped in the air. He did not know how to withdraw them, but his forehead was already covered in cold sweat. He desperately circulated his emperor chi, but no matter what, he could not drive away the chill in his heart. Yi Fan still stood there quietly, not moving at all, but the golden light around him gradually dimmed and gathered towards the crystal in front of his chest. The shape of Noah's ship became clearer and clearer. This sudden change caused everyone's hearts to tighten. They were all gathering their strength, waiting for changes to appear so that they could seize the opportunity. But now, it seemed that there was no hope. Looking at Feng Yi, it seemed that it was going to be finished. And an even greater danger had already appeared in front of them, and that was the nirvana of winter of the unaging mountain. It had already seeped into the sealed space, and could collapse at any time. Boom boom boom. The more one was worried about something, the faster it would come. Just as everyone's mind was about to move, a black space suddenly shattered as if it had been hit by a hammer a few times. It turned into tiny black fragments that continuously shattered and dissipated. A pure white world appeared in front of everyone. The world was as bright as day. All living things were destroyed and everything returned to the void. The throne, the ageless mountain, appeared in front of everyone, emitting an extreme white light. It was like a rolling heavenly might that pressed down on everyone's heart. Everyone's face turned pale, and they couldn't breathe. 2 more screams were heard. The martial emperor disciples of the Hall of Holy Fire could not withstand the power of quietus. The 2 of them were turned into dust crystals without even being frozen. Tao Can's eyes were red. Starting from Feng Zhu, 4 people had died, leaving only him and Qi Guang. They were also struggling and could be destroyed at any time. The Temple of Holy Fire had been passed down for thousands of years and was gradually declining. They might be completely annihilated today. Young master, he cried out in agony. If you don't wake up, everyone will leave you. We're not afraid of death, but we're afraid that we won't be able to see the day when the Temple of Holy Fire regains its glory. Tao Can was mentally and physically exhausted. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned extremely pale. He could no longer resist the power of nirvana. Suddenly, a force surged to his side. Qi Guang held a treasured saber in his hand and helped him create a defense. He struggled to hold on and gritted his teeth. Tao Can, you can't die. The young master still needs your help. If you want to die, it should be me, this old man, who should die first. Elder Qi, I'm afraid I can't hold on any longer. So what if I can hold on for a little longer? Don't waste your energy. You're the only martial supreme in the sacred fire hall now. Elder Qi, please hold back your power. He slapped the treasured saber with his palm in an attempt to shake it off. He did not want Qi Guang to waste his energy in order to protect himself. Qi Guang was furious and shouted, "Don't mess around. You can't fall no matter what." The qi in his hand sank and pushed away the power of the jar's palm. He refused to let go of his defense no matter what. He will never fall. A silent voice suddenly rang out, as if it came from an extremely distant place. It was so unreal, but it was also extremely solemn and sacred. It gave people endless power, giving birth to warmth and an infinite hope for survival in their hearts. "You're the young master." Qi Guang was shocked to see that Yi Fan had already woken up and seemed to have regained consciousness. He formed a symbol in the air with one hand and landed on the two of them. That symbol was none other than a golden tadpole-like character. It landed in the middle of Qi Guang and Yi Fan and emitted a golden light, repelling the surrounding winter rule force and forming a small piece of its own world. Everyone looked at each other in shock. At this moment, they could not see through Yi Fan at all. Not only could they not see through his power, even his expression and gaze seemed to be drifting. No matter how they looked, they could not see his true appearance. Whoosh! Qing instantly turned into a bolt of lightning and charged into the golden light as fast as it could. It immediately felt warm, and the coldness of winter was no longer present. He heaved a sigh of relief, but he only dared to stand at the edge of the golden light. He looked at Yi Fan warily, revealing a deep fear. "Young master, you're too weak." Tao Qin was also overjoyed, looking at Yi Fan's transformation, that feeling of being unable to look up to him. He was so excited that tears flowed down his face, but Yi Fan was very calm at this moment. He did not have any emotions, other than deep thoughts in his eyes. There was also a trace of confusion. He just muttered to himself, "The edicts of winter. Nirvana? He is not Yi Fan." Suddenly, a voice rang out as Yunxiao rushed into the golden light and hid himself. His eyes were filled with deep shock, as if he could not believe it. Yi Fan turned his head slightly and gave him a rare smile. Then, he nodded at Yunxiao, strode out of the golden light, and stepped into the destructive power. As soon as he walked out of the golden circle of light, whooshing sounds could be heard in the air. Everyone instantly flew over and poured into the shelter, which was not big to begin with. It suddenly became crowded, and even Feng Yi rushed in. Qi Guanghe stared at him with hatred in his eyes. Feng Yi's expression changed slightly. He silently stood at the edge of the golden light and secretly regulated his origin power. Sheng, on the other hand, looked at the golden tadpole between Tao Can and Qi Guang with a serious gaze, not saying a word. Yunxiao was also shocked. The golden tadpole-like character exuded a unique power of rules, which could actually compete with the rule of earth. Yi Fan had casually formed this character. It showed that he had a complete grasp of these characters. Boom boom boom. Heaven and earth suddenly trembled, and the golden light was hit by a huge force. It became dazed, and Feng Yi's face changed greatly. He hurriedly ran from the edge to the center. The entire enchantment was reduced to nothingness, leaving only this small golden world. The powerful destructive power continued to compress over, and the golden light became smaller and smaller. The unaging mountain seemed to have sensed the unique power of the golden light, and it began to change gradually. Its heaven-reaching power kept collapsing, and in a few breaths, it had become a miniature mountain that exuded extremely powerful nomological power in the air. A powerful white territory came out from it, flying in their direction and fiercely crashing down. A shadow loomed over everyone's heart as they felt the destructive rule force and mystic artifact territory. All of their faces turned pale and they were terrified. What a powerful force! Are these the experts of this era? Yi Fan mumbled to himself, his eyes serious. He stepped above the golden circle of light and made seals with his hands. The crystal in front of his chest projected an image in the air, which slowly turned into a small boat. After making a seal, it flew into Yi Fan's hands. He slowly opened his palms, and the small golden boat changed with it. It shot out rays of golden light that turned his body into a golden ocean. The small boat suddenly became bigger in his hands, and it crashed toward the unaging mountain. Boom boom boom. The world turned into two poles, one gold and one white. The white world pressed down fiercely, and a black crack appeared in the vacuum between the two colors. The stars in the crack turned into a galaxy. There was no one in charge of the unaging mountain. It only operated automatically according to the program that Teng Guang had set up in the past. It absorbed the power of the Four Seasons enchantment formed by the ancient evergreen tree and the pressure of its own profound level weapon to condense the strongest law of the earth nirvana, crush all things, and return everything to the void. Yi Fan's hands continued to form seals, sending them into the small boat, forcefully resisting the pressure of the unaging mountain. It seemed like he was having a hard time. The people in the golden circle of light below were shocked beyond words. They would die the moment they touched the destructive power, let alone resist it. Everyone held their breath as they felt the collision of the worlds in the sky. They were like a withered leaf in the wind and rain, ready to collapse at any time. This won't do. This power is too strong. It's already at the peak of the laws. If I don't use all my spiritual will, I won't be able to withstand it. A trace of hesitation flashed across Yifan's face, but he made up his mind. He put his hands together and a weird seal changed in his hands, creating many golden tadpole-like characters that flew into the golden boat. It was as if time and space were passing by rapidly, passing through thousands of rocks, creating waves that crossed the other shore. At this moment, the unaging mountain was enveloped by thousands of golden lights. It let out a rumbling sound and was forced to retreat. The galaxy between the two worlds disappeared in an instant, and thousands of rays of light shot into the sky. The silent winter disintegrated at this moment, and the golden light covered the earth. The power of the unaging mountain was greatly reduced. It forcibly broke through the space and tried to escape. Yifan frowned. He wanted to block it, but his pupils suddenly opened. There was a dazed look in his eyes. The power around his body started to weaken. It was about to disappear. He suddenly shook his head, revealed a serious expression, and muttered to himself, "There's no time." He then pointed with his hand and the small golden boat flew into the seal on his chest. He put his hands together in the air and sat down cross-legged, entering a meditative state as if no one was around. The golden light in the surroundings gradually disappeared as he entered a meditative state, and only a huge crack appeared in the sky. The unaging mountain had long since disappeared, and the entire sky began to shine and change. With the disappearance of the unaging mountain, the entire enchantment was instantly shattered. All the illusions disappeared one by one. In the original 4-season space, a powerful life force spread out, turning the surroundings into a green color. In a radius of several li, countless branches and leaves appeared, as if they had directly drilled out of another space. Sheng looked at the changes around him and his heart skipped a beat. He was ecstatic. The ancient evergreen tree. This dense forest of leaves and branches was actually Little Qing's main body. It stretched out for several li, and its height reached the clouds. Qing's expression became quite unsightly. With its true body here, there were as many experts as there were clouds, and it was not confident that it could protect the young man. However, the biggest problem right now was what had happened to that young man, and it was completely confused. He lightly landed on his main body, looking at Yifan who was floating among the branches. There was no light around Yifan. He retracted all of his aura and made a hand seal. A golden tadpole-like rune appeared in his palm, emitting a faint light as he remained motionless. The power he had displayed just now made everyone feel apprehensive, and they didn't dare to make a move. The entire tree was silent, not a single sound could be heard. The sunlight shone through the leaves, not even the chirping of birds or insects could be heard. Everyone was looking at Yifan meditating, not knowing what to do. Sheng squinted at the golden tadpole-like characters in Yifan's hand and said, "I understand now. He's receiving the inheritance of the sacred weapon." He then put on a respectful expression and said, "I am Sheng of the demon race. It is no different from going against you. I only want to take this ancient evergreen tree. Please allow me to pass." Yifan did not react at all. He did not seem to care. Sheng pondered for a moment and smiled, "Then I'll take it that you've agreed." He slowly flew forward and passed by Yifan. Yu and the rest followed closely behind. Fu was even holding Yuan Sun and Tang Jie in one hand. After an intense struggle, he finally chose to follow these people. Without Sheng and the others' help, staying behind would not only be advantageous, it would be hard to say if they could even keep their lives. "Mr. Yu, please leave first, we'll meet again in the future," Shen Feng said in a low voice. He felt that he and the nine-winged spirit snakebird were enough to get a share of the loot. Yu nodded slightly, "Take care." The 7 of them quickly left the place and flew into the distance, beginning to look for the main trunk of the tree. Qing's expression changed drastically, and it was boiling with anger. It snorted, "You want to take my main body?" You're really looking for death. He turned into a bolt of lightning and chased after it. The green lightning swept through the branches like a carpet, but none of the branches and green leaves were hurt. The power of the lightning was getting stronger and stronger. The remaining people surrounded Yi Fan, each of them had their own thoughts, they did not dare to attack or leave. Yunxiao did not think for long. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart, as he sensed a strong killing intent. A few figures surrounded him in an instant, including 3 martial emperors, Zhang Xiaotian, Shen Feng, and the 9-winged spirit snake bird. Except for Tao Can and Qi Guang, who were guarding Yi Fan worriedly, the rest of the people had surrounded Yunxiao several times, and several powerful divine senses had locked onto him. What's wrong? Didn't you want to steal Noah's ship? Why are you surrounding me? Yunxiao asked coldly. Humph, stop playing dumb. Feng Yi snorted and took a step forward with a gloomy face, hand over the purple cauldron and the ancient bell, and I'll spare your life. As expected. Yunxiao was prepared for this. His body began to transform into a demon, and his soul merged with the demon dragon again. In the face of so many experts, there was no way for him to escape, so he had to break out of the cauldron of mountain and river and escape into it. With a calm look in his eyes, he looked at everyone and sneered, there are only 2 profound level weapons. There are so many of you, how are you going to split them? Don't try to goad me into action. The Fief Lord sneered. As long as you hand it over, it doesn't matter how we split it. Which one of them wasn't an old fox? Who would be easily provoked by him? If you want to use soul battle techniques, stop struggling. Zhang Xiaotian's cold voice rang out. He had sensed Yunxiao's soul fluctuation directly, so he threw out the soul-devouring flag and released the golden soul slave. The soul slave opened its mouth and spat out a cloud of mist, which actually suppressed Yunxiao's soul fusion. The demonic dragon felt a great obstacle in its soul, and it could not fuse with it. This soul summoning technique is a secret technique of my soul devourer clan. You still want to show off in front of me? Zhang Xiaotian's face was cold. With a few hand seals, the mist that the golden soul slave spat out turned grayish-white, and Yunxiao felt that not only was his soul power suppressed, but the demonic dragon was also about to be extracted. He was shocked, and his eyes shone with a sharp light as he stared at Zhang Xiaotian. His heart turned cold, but he still braced himself. There were many experts here, and Yunxiao would not be able to escape this time. He would die without a doubt, so he had nothing to be afraid of. Feng Yi revealed a depressed expression. He looked at Zhang Xiaotian and praised, not bad, you've done well. His soul will be yours later, you can take it as you wish. Zhang Xiaotian snorted coldly. Yunxiao was only a martial grandmaster, so he did not care about his soul. What he cared about was the soul of the true dragon's descendant in his soul. Che Shuyao's face was also cold. If Zhang Xiaotian hadn't devoured a part of his soul, he wouldn't have been injured to this point. He could only watch as the benefits were all taken by his fief. Since you're so stubborn, I'll have to personally tire you out. A mocking killing intent flashed in Feng Yi's eyes. He held the beast taming ring in his palm and struck out with the 5 elements Saint Claw. The Emperor's chi was overwhelming, suppressing everything. Although Zhang Xiaotian, Shen Feng, and the others were at the peak of the martial venerable realm, they still felt extremely uncomfortable and their suppressed expressions were very ugly. You want to touch him? Have you asked me? A cold voice rang out. Yi Fan, who had been meditating, suddenly opened his eyes. As he blinked, a flash of lightning flashed across his eyes, and he suddenly appeared next to Yunxiao. Then, he pointed his finger at Yunxiao, and tadpole-like characters flickered on the tip of his finger, looking extremely gorgeous. Feng Yi was shocked. He was shocked to find that his arm was suppressed by a force, and he could not move. How could this be? The Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens can suppress everything. How can there be a force that can suppress my Emperor Qi? Fear appeared on Feng Yi's face, an unknown fear that subverted his common sense attacked him. Yi Fan's finger landed and blood spurted out as his hand flew away. Feng Yi let out a blood-curdling screech, his forehead dripping with cold sweat. He hurriedly used his left hand to recall the 5 elements beast taming ring, and did not dare to stay any longer, and was about to fly away. The rest of the people saw that the situation wasn't good and wanted to escape. Since you've drawn my attention, you can all stay here. A cold light flashed in Yi Fan's eyes, his voice was deep and steady, completely different from before. Even the aura he gave off was abnormally sharp, making it hard for people to get close. Void forms of all laws, divine palm of wisdom. A palm print condensed in the air and suddenly transformed into a golden light barrier that spread out with Yi Fan as the center. Everywhere the golden palm passed by, it was like a single thought could turn into countless Daos and everything in the world would become his palm. Yunxiao's pupils constricted. The power of this palm was comparable to his great wind and cloud palm. In the distance, Qi Guanghe and Trancha's eyes widened as they cried out in shock, the Prajna palm. It's the long-lost Prajna divine palm. The horror in the hearts of the two could not be any greater. Bang. 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 Thousands of palm prints exploded towards the surrounding cultivators. Everyone was shocked, and one by one, they used their life-saving skills to escape in all directions. Che Shuyao and Guduang Yu were the closest, and their Emperor Qi defense was broken. The palm print hit their chests, and their internal organs were crushed. Che Shuyao's body fell on the tree and died. Guduang Yu was also sent flying far away, and it spat out a large mouthful of blood. It was unknown what life-saving technique it had used, but it actually managed to catch its last breath, and with a burst of genuine qi, it fled as if it was flying. As Feiyang had run away early, although it was also affected by the divine palm and had a large number of bones broken, his internal organs were not injured, so it was the least injured. Zhang Xiaotian, Shen Feng, and the nine-winged spirit snakebird were not so lucky. They were directly blown up by the god's palm and died on the spot before they could even struggle. Yi Fan retracted his palm, frowning. Tu Tao was actually managed to escape, he seemed to be extremely dissatisfied with his palm. His display of power had made Qi Guang and Tao can break out in cold sweat. He had killed 3 peak martial venerables and 1 martial supreme in one move, and 2 martial supremes had escaped with serious injuries. Even a fool would know that this man was not Yi Fan. Who the hell are you? Tao Can said. What happened to the young master? Yi Fan looked at him, he did not say anything, his brows were tightly locked. Yunxiao gulped and said in a serious voice, if I'm not wrong, he must be the unparalleled martial sovereign, Yi Nantian. These 3 words were like a sudden clap of thunder that exploded among the luxuriant branches and leaves, causing the birds in the forest to fly away with a piu sound. It was abnormally quiet. Yi Nantian, Lord Yi Nantian. Tao Can and Qi Guang both trembled, and they immediately knelt down in the air. Although they found it hard to believe for a moment, for some reason, they believed Yunxiao's words. Yi Fan stared at Yunxiao indifferently, as if he wanted to see through all the layers. Yunxiao's heart skipped a beat. Without the slightest fear, he circulated the Great Expansion divine technique and blocked the other party's spying and probing, making it impossible for him to advance an inch. Eh? Yi Fan was surprised, he smiled, it seems like you're also a person with secrets. Yunxiao's eyes shone with a fierce light as he said in a deep voice, I don't care who you are, Yi Nantian or any other powerful cultivator. I just want to know how Yi Fan is doing. How long are you going to take over his body? Yi Fan smiled, it seems like you care about him. I didn't save the wrong person. Back then, I left 3 divine senses in Noah's ship to help my descendants inherit this sacred artifact. Although he knew the other party's identity, Yunxiao was not afraid at all. He sneered and said, it's a game that's been around for ages, and it's actually a scam. Other than your Yi family's descendants, without the Yin key mark, it's impossible to obtain Noah's ship.